With me are the M4 MacBook Pros. Overall, we like this release, but whether or not you should buy one depends on so many factors. You see, each person's situation is different. So even though we normally give our conclusions up front, this time we're going to walk you through the details and give them at the end. Let's start with Geekbench, which tests a variety of common performance tasks that you may do on your laptop. In single core, we're seeing around a 25% boost from M3 to M4, which is a huge leap forward. M2 to M3 was only 15%. Compared to Windows laptops, M4's single-core performance is much faster, which contributes to these laptops feeling incredibly snappy. In multi-core, the new MacBook Pro 16 with the highest-end M4 Max chip is the fastest laptop we have ever tested. It is 25% faster than the equivalent M3 Max. This makes sense as both these laptops have the same number of cores, so this matches the difference in single-core performance. Compared to the older M2 Max equipped MacBook Pro 16, this new one is a whopping 81% faster. Compared to Windows laptops, the M4 Max 16-core MacBook Pro just wallops them. It is 46% faster than our maxed out Legion Pro 7i with an Intel i9-14900HX. And keep in mind, that laptop is significantly larger and heavier than the MacBook Pro 16, especially when you factor in its power brick. When it comes to the M4 Pros, we have the model with a 14-core processor. It sees an even bigger jump generation to generation. It is 44% faster than the M3 Pro 12-core. That is actually the model that this one replaces, as they cost the same amount. Both the M4 Pro chips and the base M4 chip have more cores for the same cost. When it comes to the M4 Pro chip specifically, the ratio of performance to efficient cores has changed. You now get more performance cores. You can see this at work when we compare the new M4 Pro 12 core to the M3 Pro 12 core. We actually didn't purchase this model, as I said, so we've had to borrow Matt's score. You can see a 30% jump in performance, which is due to that increase in single core performance, as I said, as well as the higher ratio of performance cores. Now, for our base M4 laptop, it performs between an M3 Pro 11 core and 12 core, which is a big step forward. The performance of the M3 chip at this price point was a little lackluster. This increase in performance and the fact that this laptop now starts with 16GB of memory makes the base MacBook Pro 14 just far more appealing, especially for people who need a bit of performance but don't need crazy performance. Web devs are a good example of these folks. This also bodes very well for the upcoming MacBook Airs with M4. When compared to Windows laptops, the M4 MacBook Pro 14 performs better than our best performing Snapdragon laptop, the Slim 7X. It also beats the Intel Core Ultra 9 in the much larger Yoga Pro 9i and performs around the same as AMD's new Zen 5 chip. But Geekbench tests several specific tasks, many of which can be hardware optimized by a CPU. Apple has historically done very well here. This isn't a bad thing. These are tasks that you legitimately do on your laptop. File compression, PDF rendering, background blur, and that sort of thing. To see max general CPU performance though, let's now take a look at Cinebench. But before we do that, a quick word from today's video sponsor, UGREEN. The UGREEN Uno Wireless Powerbank 15W is a fun and fast charging accessory for your new iPhone. It is also a magnetic 15W wireless charging stand and a 10,000 mAh battery all in one. It accomplishes this by having a folding stand to prop it up. Then once you want to use it as a battery, just fold it back and take it with you. Just like all Uno devices, it has a super cute robot design with a display that shows battery percent remaining. It also uses emojis to indicate what charging state you are currently in. Then there is the new UGREEN Uno Charger 100W. As the name implies, it supports charging up to 100 watts, good enough to charge a MacBook Pro and 3 other devices. In fact, it can charge an iPhone 16 from 0 to 57% in just 30 minutes. And since it uses GaN charging technology, it is small and portable. Treat yourself to a UGREEN Uno charger, links below. In Cinebench, the MacBook Pro 16 with the highest-end M4 Max chip is 21% faster than the prior M3 Max, and an insane twice as fast as the M2 Max. It is 18% faster than Intel's fastest processor, the i9-14900HX. However, Intel processors can actually match the MacBook Pro's multi-core speed, but they just need to be water-cooled to do so, like in the Hydrox 16. That setup is of course much larger and less portable than a MacBook Pro. When it comes to the M4 Pro and M4 Max 14-core CPUs that we have in our MacBook Pro 14s, they perform so well that they compete with huge gaming laptops like the Legion and Scar. One thing I really like about these new M4 processors is that you can now get close to maximum CPU performance from an M4 Pro chip. You no longer have to upgrade to a Max chip, which you did with the M3 series. There was a significant difference in the total number of performance cores between the M3 Pros and the M3 Max chips. Since the Max chips come with a bunch of stuff like extra GPU cores, a lot of buyers were forced to pay for things that they just didn't need. The rest of the story is similar to Geekbench. The M4 chip is now very competitive to high-end Windows laptops, whereas the M3 just wasn't. Let's now talk about sustained performance over time. To test this, we ran Cinebench on a loop for 10 minutes. Most of the laptops in our test suite were able to sustain their performance. The MacBook Pro 14 with the M4 Max chip just couldn't. This matches what we've seen in every M series generation to date. Putting a Max chip in a MacBook Pro 14 is not ideal. It does not have the cooling required to get the most out of that processor. During that 10-minute torture test, we measured the average power draw. These MacBooks draw a similar amount of power to the MacBooks that they are replacing. The only noticeable change we see is that the 14-core M4 Pro draws more than the outgoing 12-core M3 Pro. But that is of course because it has 2 extra cores, and more of its cores are now performance cores. Taking a look at efficiency, you can see that these new M4 MacBook Pros are the most power efficient laptops we've ever seen. We calculate this as performance per watt of power drawn. Literally, their power efficiency is at least double their competitors. For Intel, AMD and Qualcomm, this is just a complete embarrassment at this point. Now, one issue with this approach to measuring power efficiency is that it uses the laptop's highest performance modes. Windows laptops have multiple performance modes that you usually have to manually engage. Their processors have significantly worse power efficiency at higher power draws. Therefore, to provide a more comprehensive view, we ran each major Windows processor on all available power modes and plotted them on a scatter plot. Here are our results. What you want to see is high performance for as little power drawn as possible. Where you see connected lines is where we were able to manually adjust the power draw to paint a clearer picture. The white dots are these new M4 processors, and as you can see, they just dominate. The grey dots are the older M3s, the next best is the red, which is AMD's highest-end Zen 5 chip, the yellow is Qualcomm, which outperforms Intel, who are indicated by the blue. Now, a more power-efficient machine leads to less heat, less fan noise, and longer battery life. So, let's see how that plays out, starting with the heat you feel under a max CPU performance load. The MacBook Pro 16 with the M4 Max chip appears to get hotter than the prior MacBook Pro 16s with the M3 Max chip. It now feels similar to the M2 Max powered one. This is, as I said, for pure CPU tasks. This didn't match my real-world experience for video editing, which I will talk about in a sec. The MacBook Pro 14 with the M4 Max chip is the worst. It gets very hot. This clearly, again, highlights the downside of getting a Max chip in a smaller MacBook Pro 14. It just can't be properly cooled. And keep in mind we have the less powerful of the 2 Max chips. It would probably be worse with the 16-core one. The MacBook Pro 14 with the 14-core M4 Pro chip gets warmer than the M3 Pro laptop it replaces, but that of course has less total cores and a lot less performance cores. It is around the same in terms of the heat you feel as the older M2 Pro 12-core. The MacBook Pro 14 with the M4 10-core chip is the coolest feeling. It's amazing that this little laptop performs almost as good as the much larger Yoga Pro 9i and stays cooler to the touch. But heat is only part of the picture, so let's look at fan noise. Here, the M4 Max MacBook Pro 16 has the same fan noise under max load as the older M3 Max MacBook Pro 16. The M4 Pros have about the same fan noise as the M3 Pros that they replace. The base M4 MacBook Pro though shows its downside here. It gets very loud for sustained high-performance CPU tasks. This is because this variant only has one fan, so it has to run its fan faster, which makes it louder.
One thing I noticed during testing is unlike Windows laptops that immediately raise their fan speeds for performance tasks, these Macs did it far more gradually. That meant for burst performance tasks, their fan noise was next to nothing, way quieter than comparable Windows laptops. That is, of course, for CPU tasks, but they do well in graphics as well. In Wildlife Extreme, which is a cross-platform gaming benchmark, we see the M4 Max nearly tie with an NVIDIA RTX 4090. This is still an awesome result for Apple, and a 19% improvement from their same 40-core GPU in their M3 version. The lower-end 14-core M4 Max chip with its 32-core GPU outperforms the RTX 4080 in our Legion, which is also a great result. The most interesting finding here, though, is that the M4 Pro only has 16 GPU cores and performs just as well as the 38 cores of the M2 Max of 2 years ago. A lot of progress has clearly been made on Apple's GPU cores. The base M4 chip's performance may look poor compared to the powerful laptops we have on our graphs, but it's actually really good. Its score of almost 10,000 smashes the integrated graphics in even the most powerful Windows laptops. It's around a 31% lift over the ZenBook S14 with Intel's Lunar Lake. By the way, we do recognize that Wildlife uses Vulkan for Windows laptops and Metal for Macs. Windows laptops may perform better using DirectX 12, but right now we don't have a cross-platform benchmark that supports this. Regardless, Macs are now clearly ready for gaming. Too bad their selection is so limited. In Blender, we further tested the GPU by rendering the default splash screen on each laptop, and these are the results for how long it took to do so. The M4 Max perform even better than what we saw in Wildlife. We see both M4 Max chips beat out the 4090. The M4 Pro we have beats out the 4080 by a hair as well, which is impressive given how small this laptop is versus a 4080 one.
For video editors, we're going to start by looking at Puget's Premiere Pro benchmark. We see a modest improvement from the prior generation when it comes to the Max chips. The lower-end M4 Max chip in our MacBook Pro 14 now matches the performance of the highest-end M3 Max chip in our older MacBook Pro 16. The next thing that you'll notice is that this is one of the only tests where Windows laptops do well. Premiere Pro loves Intel hardware. You can even see the ProArt with an RTX 4070 and an AMD Zen 5 chip is almost beaten by the Yoga Pro 9i that has an RTX 4060, but has an Intel chip. This matches what we experience here at this YouTube channel. My MacBook Pro 16s with Max chips always stutter and drop frames on our complex videos, whereas Taylor or Colin's high-end Windows laptops with Intel chips do not. What's more interesting to me is once again the M4 Pro 14 core sees a huge performance boost. It is a significantly better laptop for video editing than the M3 Pro 12 core that it replaces. Since I video edit off MacBooks using Premiere Pro and a lot of buyers of these laptops do, we dived in deeper. First, we ran a warp stabilization test, which is a common effect that stabilizes jolty footage. The M4 Max and Pro chip saw a slight improvement versus the highest-end M3 Max. This is likely due to improved single-core performance. Versus the M3 Pro chip, the faster memory bandwidth of these new M4 Pro processors is likely also coming into play. Overall, this may not seem like that much of a difference, as you're saving a couple of seconds, but keep in mind, most editors do this many times. One of the most time-intensive tasks though as a video editor is exporting. That's where we just all sit around and wait. We exported one of our videos on each of these laptops. The M4 Max MacBook Pro 16 was an absolute beast. I talked about this specific operation extensively in my MacBook Pro M3 video, You've Been Misled. Exporting a video is highly dependent on the media engines. It's all about how fast you can decode and encode footage, and how fast you can feed those media engines with data, i.e. the amount of memory you have and bandwidth. The M3 Max 16-core chip had the same number of media engines and the same 400 GB per second of memory bandwidth as the M2 Max chip that came before it. So it didn't perform that much better. This year's 16-core M4 Max has 546 GB of memory bandwidth and now shows a more noticeable improvement. But the real star of the show is once again the M4 Pro 14 core. It way exceeded my expectation, so much so that we ran it twice. Up until now, Pro chips were around twice as slow exporting videos as Max chips. I believe that was because they only had one media engine, not two. The 14 core performing so well indicates there were other bottlenecks at play that have been alleviated. If you are video editing in DaVinci, not Premiere, the story is similar. Solid improvements for these new Macs, and again a surprisingly good result for the MacBook Pro 14 with the M4 Pro chip. Where the DaVinci results differ though from Premiere Pro is Mac vs Windows. Here, the M4 Max equipped MacBook Pro now outperforms the most powerful Windows laptops. For creators using Photoshop, here are our Puget benchmark scores. You can see more modest improvements compared to the other applications we've shown you. One interesting note is that all these Macs dating back to the M2 series significantly outperform Windows laptops in this application. Using Amorphous DiskMark for macOS and Crystal DiskMark for Windows, we measured storage, read and write speeds on the same test settings. The first takeaway here is that the M4s do about as well as their M3 predecessors in sequential speeds, which is good. By the way, our base MacBook Pro with M4 and the Air with M3 are about half as fast. This is likely because our configs only have smaller 512GB drives and not 1TB drives, i.e. smaller storage drives are slower. The second takeaway is that some of the M4s are a bit slower in random reads than their predecessors, but still perform way better than Windows competitors. When it comes to random writes, their scores have improved over last generation, but here they do worse than Windows laptops. Cierra and I were both professional programmers, and neither of us love programming benchmarks. That is because it depends on what you are coding. Are you coding something that does a ton of database writes that needs super fast storage speeds? Are you coding something single-threaded or multi-threaded? I feel like we've already adequately covered each of these important dimensions, but I'd love to hear from you if you think we're missing a test, so comment down below if you think we are. What I do want to call out is how uniquely suited these laptops are for AI and machine learning tasks. Normally, data scientists want high-powered GPUs for large matrix operations combined with lots of memory. In a regular computer, you have limited GPU memory, so you link multiple GPUs together in nodes. These Macs are unique in that they combine high-powered GPUs with up to 128 gigs of unified memory that is both fast and that the GPU as well as the CPU can access. This makes these very interesting for AI and ML development. Let's talk battery life. As per usual with MacBooks, all of them are able to maintain their full performance when unplugged. To test battery life under a max performance load, we ran Cinebench on a loop for 30 minutes while unplugged. This year's M4 series do not last as long as the prior M3 or M2 series. This is evident when you look at laptops with unchanged core counts like the 16-core Max chips. The lower performing M4 10-core does very well here, particularly as this version of the MacBook Pro 14 has the same large battery as the more expensive versions with the M4 Pro and Max chips. Regardless, running performance tasks while on battery continues to be a big advantage of Mac laptops over Windows. Those laptops just fall apart in a heap. Switching to very light tasks, we played a video on repeat with the laptop's brightness all lowered to 200 nits until the battery was fully drained. This year's M4 MacBook Pros lasted longer than the M3 MacBook Pros that they are replacing, anywhere between an hour to over 2, yay. Once again, the M4 Pro 14-core MacBook Pro was the big winner. The Macs continue to smash high-performing Windows laptops in this test, but this time the new breed of Windows laptops with Qualcomm's Snapdragon processors and Intel's Lunar Lake processors win out here. We then recharged all laptops, played the same Netflix movie on repeat for 4 hours and measured the battery drain. This is a more realistic test as it uses Wi-Fi. The M4 MacBook Pros are now within a margin of error to the M3 MacBook Pros. One thing that's interesting is those new breed of Windows laptops that I just mentioned actually did worse than the MacBooks in this test. We are always looking to improve our testing here. For example, we are looking at ways for improved battery tests in the future, like a full rundown over Wi-Fi.
Here's how the 12-megapixel webcam on the new M4 MacBook Pros looks and sounds. We feel it looks a bit clearer than our one with M3. Here's how I look on that older one so you can compare. What do you think?
Now, when it comes to the Nanotexture display, it does sound very promising, but ordering it in would be a custom build. I'm sorry guys, but I just couldn't get one in time for this review. We will try to get one in though in the future. Anyway, what I do want to say is this. MacBooks have bright screens that already do a good job of combating reflections. I have used a MacBook Pro 14 consistently since it was launched in coffee stores all over the world. I've had glare issues maybe 3 times. These new MacBooks, they get even brighter when they detect you're in direct sunlight. We measured almost 1,000 nits. So, my gut is that it's just not necessary, especially as I said, it's a custom config, which means you likely will miss out on the discount that retailers often give you. So this upgrade should really be thought of as $150 plus whatever discount you would have missed out on by not buying from a retailer. Other than this, the M4 Pro or M4 Max laptops do have Thunderbolt 5, but we don't have any Thunderbolt 5 devices to test them with. Again, we will get some. Let's conclude. This MacBook Pro M4 release is a much better one than the M3 release. So many aspects of the MacBook Pro M3s were handicapped. These now start at 16 GB of memory instead of 8, and the M4 Pro model start at 24 instead of 18. And the M4 chip and the M4 Pro chip now have more cores, with the M4 Pro chip having a greater ratio of performance versus efficient cores. We also now get faster memory bandwidth right across the board. These changes make the base M4 MacBook Pro a much better laptop. It is significantly faster and you no longer need to upgrade its memory. You also get that third USB-C Thunderbolt port, and the laptop has better external display support. Previously, this laptop just wasn't worth buying. By the time you upgraded its memory, you may as well have bought an M3 Pro model. The M4 base model is now a fantastic choice for students or light users who want more than an Air. It's even viable for performance users like coders. Just be aware that it only has a single fan cooling solution, rather than the 2 fans of the more powerful MacBook Pro 14s with the M4 Pro or Max chips. This means it may get warm or have fan noise for high performance tasks. If you don't like this and you want to stick around this price point, just look for an older M3 Pro equipped MacBook Pro 14. These are now heavily discounted. You'll find them listed on our website, justjosh.tech. Those laptops will perform similarly as I showed you, and they do have that 2-fan cooling solution. When it comes to the M4 Pro MacBook Pros, these are the most improved this year. Huge boost in performance, surprisingly so for creative tasks like video editing. One thing I really like is that you now can get close to max CPU performance available in an M4 laptop by buying a Pro chip. Previously, you had to upgrade to a Max chip. That had stuff you may not have needed but had to pay for. A MacBook Pro with an M4 Pro chip is what most people should buy who do performance work. Coders, audio engineers, and even a lot of prosumer creators will be very happy with this machine. 24GB of memory is going to be enough for most of you. For example, programmers can run an 8GB VM and still have 16GB for the rest of the system. My hypothesis, as we don't have an M4 Pro 12-core in, is that if you want the best balance of performance with as little fan noise and heat as possible, that's the one to get. You get a powerful processor that won't run as hot as the 14-core, and you still get that 2-fan cooling solution. The M4 Max-equipped MacBook Pros are not as revolutionary a step up from their prior generations, at least on paper. But if you are an actual power user and really pushing these laptops like I do, you will definitely notice a difference. For my use case of doing high-end video editing, my older M2 Max and M3 Max MacBook Pro 16s would often drop frames when playing videos back from the timeline. This happened a fraction of the time with this new M4 Max MacBook Pro 16. Plus, as I showed you, tasks like applying effects and exporting videos were faster, often noticeably so. And as I alluded to earlier, in real-world video editing, my M4 Max MacBook Pro 16 did not get as uncomfortably warm to the touch as my older M3 Max one, regardless of what our Cinebench temperature measurement showed. And warning, just like MacBook Pros of old, do not buy a Max chip in a MacBook Pro 14. It just can't be properly cooled. Overall, if you aren't seeing performance issues with your current MacBook Pro, you likely don't need to upgrade, particularly if you're coming from an M2 or M3. My biggest disappointments with these laptops are the lack of Wi-Fi 7 and the low amounts of storage. Look, many people keep these laptops for a long time. Home internet connections are increasing well beyond the speeds that Wi-Fi 6 is capable of, at least in the real world. It's a shame that Apple is going to dangle this as a reason to upgrade to a MacBook in the future. On the storage front, people use these laptops for large projects. Apple is trying to push gaming too. Both require a lot of storage. Apple should not be forcing you to upgrade here. Apple selling MacBooks for well over $2,000 with 512GB of storage is just a disgrace. And on that note, avoid Apple's upgrades at all cost. Not only are they expensive, but they are only available from Apple themselves. Apple doesn't put their laptops on sales like their retailers do. So, always think of an upgrade in terms of its cost plus the amount you're missing out on by not being able to buy the laptop on sale at a retailer. You may just want to step up to a more expensive model that already comes with it, or just deal with it and upgrade your entire laptop sooner. Apple laptops hold their value well in the second-hand market, and this launch has shown us just how much progress can be made in a 2-year window. Given the huge steps forward of these M4 MacBooks over the M3 series, we have updated our recommendations on our website. We are now only going to recommend purchasing an older M3 model if it's $400 cheaper than its M4 counterpart. In fact, make sure to check out our website justjosh.tech. We scour the internet for the best deals and we post them there. Finally, only 17% of our viewers are currently subscribed. If you're still watching this video at this point and are not subscribed, come on, what are you doing? As you can see, this took an immense amount of effort from the whole team, so give us a thanks by getting subscribed and clicking that like button. It's something free and easy that you can do to support us. Till next time, go do something awesome with your day, and I will catch you later.